Looks like we are live here. So let's go ahead and get underway here. Hello and welcome to the MMA Live Chat Show. I'm Rich Davie and it's Thursday, October 9th, 2014. On today's show, we'll be discussing Cung Lee's claims that the UFC HGH testing is flawed, Piotr Hallman testing positive for PEDs, and we'll also speak about PEDs in MMA and the UFC in general. And if we have any time, maybe we will talk about one or two other things in the final thoughts segment. On today's show, we have yours truly, Amy Gazelle, and Fred Kirby. Okay, guys, thanks for taking part in another show. Appreciate you taking time to be here and joining me to discuss these issues about HGH, TRT, and MMA. So go ahead and say hello to anybody that might be listening, fellas.
How's it going, Rich? How's it going, Fred? Glad to be with you guys again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's happening, fellas?
Okay. Appreciate you guys being here. Really do. All right, let's talk about. I know we spoke about Cung Lee a couple of times on a couple of the other shows. There were, that big controversy regarding the picture of him that surfaced just before that fight that he was going to have with Michael Bisping in Macao, China. We were kind of joking about, the way that he looked and everything like that, where, he was making the excuse, I guess you could call it, why he looked so pumped up was because he had just got done working out, the lighting was just right, the sweat was glistening off his body. And then after that, I mean, everybody pretty much thought that, he was making that up as far as, the rumors going around that he was doing HGH or steroids there. But on the last show where we did speak about this, I think I was the only one actually who was supporting, the possibility that maybe there was in fact something wrong with the testing. And apparently that seems to be, what that problem just might be there. I don't know if anybody else out there has read about this. I'm sure some of you have. But the problem here is that in order to do the proper HGH testing, the testing has to be done in a WADA lab. Because apparently from the things that I've read out there, you can't do proper testing for HGH unless you have the proper materials, whatever it is that they use to test for the HGH to get that determination. But you can't get those materials to do the proper testing unless you are the WADA or WADA approved lab. So what have you guys heard on this, Dana?
Pretty much what you're saying. I'm reading an article on it right now. They are testing something that, like you said, that is pretty much something a company like the WADA really has to test to be able to get positive results. So it just
well, not even positive.
False positives could be
exactly.
very, very highly
exactly.
likely. So it is very possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're saying. They were saying not that you can't test for it in other labs, but testing is going to generate false results or false positives.
Eddie's saying that Mayhem Miller barricaded himself in his house. SWAT and tons of cops are outside his house trying to arrest him. He's live tweeting the entire thing.
Yeah. Who is?
Mayhem Miller.
Yeah, he went off the deep end again. Did you see what he said about Dana
I see
White?
what he said about Dana White and the STD and the woman that they know or whatever, but I guess this is going on right
now. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just reading that before we went live.
Well, let's stay on topic. If we have time, we'll talk about that in the end. Let's run through this here, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Any more opinions on that before I throw it over to Fred, Damon?
I know that's I agree with you. The false positives are too likely to happen. I mean, it does look like it, but I mean, with what he's saying, yeah. Fresh out of a workout, sweat. I mean, a picture can look totally different than a picture can make you look a lot better than what you actually are, especially after a workout and everything else.
And the lighting is just right.
Yeah, it could actually do it. I mean, you would have to actually see pictures of him before.
Before the sweat and after.
Yeah, exactly. To see.
Okay, Fred, I know you're not a proponent of that excuse there, and I don't think you would actually believe that the testing is flawed, but what do you think? Have you read about this, and what are your opinions?
Yeah, no, listen, I do think that the testing could be flawed. That very well could be the case. That probably is the case. I think that doing these type of blood testings, that WADA should be probably involved, and that you need a high level of, scientists and folks like that to test like this. So I think that the test could very well have been botched. I don't doubt that whatsoever. Now, was Cung Lee's test botched is a completely different story for me. I don't buy the light excuse.
I like this. You're like a lawyer. You always get that other side of the argument. I love it.
No, but I just don't. I don't. It's one of those deals where if it looks like a dog, it barks like a dog, and runs like a dog, it's probably a dog, man. I mean, there was this ton of speculation before. He's talking about the light, and then afterwards he put that interview out where he's talking about, how much sleep he got and eating kale and just all this kind of crazy shit.
And then the soy that he was talking about.
Yeah, the soy. I mean, I don't know. It's silly shit. I think that they probably do need to fine-tune their testing for sure, because I think that something like that is completely possible for them to botch the results. But as far as him, somehow them botching his results and him getting a way out of this, I don't know. I don't really necessarily believe that whatsoever.
Yeah. I kind of think he was actually on something. But I do also want to give him the benefit of the doubt too.
Yeah, I mean, I noted on a couple of the other shows too that he hasn't really had the best physique in the world. He's always looked a bit on the soft side. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but in my opinion, looking at him in the past and some of the pictures of him, he never really looked like he was a real fit, ripped kind of guy. He always looked like he had a little bit of softness, like kind of like BJ Penn back in the day,
Yeah, and at his age, it's kind of hard to get ripped really quick without something. He did still look a little bit soft. I mean, he did look ripped, but he didn't look totally jacked up like Belfort did.
True. But I don't know. Like I said, I guess anything's possible. Maybe he had great lighting. Maybe he had a really good fucking camp and he was just peaking. And then just maybe they botched the fucking test results too. And all of those things coincide together and Cung Lee just had a really shitty string of events happen to him. But I find that all kind of unlikely. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I think that he fucking probably did piss hot. Like I said, the whole testing procedure and how that needs to be fine-tuned has merit for sure, but I don't think it's going to give Cung Lee a pass on this one. Not for me, at least.
Yeah, another thing I don't understand about this is how it went from a 9-month suspension to now a 1-year suspension. There just seems to be some stuff circling around it that doesn't seem right.
So what are you thinking? Are you thinking that the UFC did that because they want to kind of push him out of the UFC now, or what? Because it's UFC that actually said there was a miscommunication when they initially handed down the suspension. It was 9 months, and then they changed it to a year after that. But they're saying they didn't really change it; that it was a year always. It's just that it was miscommunicated.
Yeah. The UFC is notorious for miscommunication, so.
What a bullshit punishment, though, too. Oh, sure. Don't let the guy fight for a year. He fucking barely fights every year anyways. He could stay out a year, go do some fucking kung fu flick in China, and come back and be fine. It's not really a penalty in any way, for me at least. It doesn't seem like that's a very fucking harsh punishment.
At his age, it is a harsh punishment.
How many times would he really fall that year anyway?
I know, but if you look at any professional sport, even baseball, the first positive test, it's like 50 games. It's a year seems legit just because you can't suspend him for like 2 fights. Where if he fights one time a year, it's 2 years. Especially at his age, I mean, the guy really doesn't fight that much as it is. I believe they give all fighters 1 year suspension. 1 year can make a hell of a difference in the fighting game, and I agree that 1 year is a lengthy enough suspension. But that 1 year also needs to come with heavy heavy testing during that 1 year, and continued heavy testing afterwards for another 2 or 3 years for having a positive test in the past. Usually people that do this are known to repeat offend on it. So I think 1 year suspension and then 2 years of heavy testing afterwards would be sufficient, really.
I think they actually, in the recent past, it was 6 months to 9 months if you got busted on, PEDs or whatever. And I think that they then put it up to 9 months as the standard, but now it seems like they've gone up to a year as the standard.
But here's the issue, fellas. What the fuck is that helping? Like you said, more guys than ever now are popping. 6 months to a year must not scare guys very much at all because everybody is fucking juicing out of their mind still. I think if you're going to have a zero tolerance, I don't think you should necessarily be cut, but if you get fucking tested positive, piston hot, you need to get stroked majorly. I don't know whether it's financial or your fighting career. You need to do it to the point to where motherfuckers at the gym are like, yo, I'm not going to do that because if I get caught, I'm fucked. You know what I'm saying? Like, there needs to be some repercussions with this shit. Cung Lee would have fought maybe once in that year anyways. Maybe. If he wasn't filming a movie. If he's filming a movie or something, he would have fucking took that year off anyways, and this punishment literally means zero to him. Literally.
Yeah, I completely agree that I think if you do piss hot one time, that they should just throw the book at you and like throw you out of the sport, just to try and curb it. But right now, the way it is, the way they've been treating everybody else, I think the 1 year is fair for him.
Well, I think this. We've seen them progress from having acceptable levels, throughout the UFC testing for the drug testing, and then they got to the point where they banned it altogether. Now, the way that they're going about things, it's not really banned altogether, because if it was banned altogether, then I agree with Damon, then they should probably ban you for life if it's banned altogether,
See, I think it needs to be somewhere in the middle. I think 6 months to a year is child's play, and I think that a lifetime ban on your first offense may be a bit harsh. But I do think there needs to be something stern, though. Even on that first time, I don't know, $50,000 fine, no matter who you are. If you're on
but a lot of these guys that do get popped, maybe they're not making anything near that. I mean, some of these guys we see they're only making $8,000 to $10,000 a fight. If they fight 3 to 4 times a year, they wouldn't even be able to cover that.
Well, that's not my fucking problem now, is it? I guess you got to go flip pizzas. I'll garnish your fucking wages. You test positive in Vegas, you don't fight here no more until you pay your fucking $50,000 off. I guess you should.
I was always a proponent, as long as the guys could meet the thresholds that were set. But again, once they set those thresholds, the guys just kept pushing the limits, and they kept trying to cheat the system, and it's gotten to the point where it's just way too many guys are testing. So we know it's not just that some people are using steroids and using TRT and HGH, but they're actually abusing it, because the levels that are coming back are just elevated levels that are just not even acceptable within the parameters of what they even used to consider legitimate before.
Eddie's saying he doubts the UFC wants him out. They need him to appeal to the Asian market. Yeah, I agree with that. But I do agree with a zero tolerance policy. Especially it depends mainly on what it is. If it's a human growth HGH, human growth hormone, definitely banned. Anything like that, if it's something like weed, no. I mean, they're totally different drug tests. I don't believe that's a performance enhancing drug. Each one should be treated differently. As how bad you can abuse it, how bad it's been abused, along the lines of that, where if it's they got caught using something that just helps boost metabolism or something to help lose weight, where it's not necessarily to actually gain muscle or anything like that. I mean, depending on the severity of the drug, should
All right,
be
so
dependent on.
let's take a little poll here. Based on the drugs that would fall under steroids, HGH, TRT, and all the other drugs that are used for hormones and shit like that, what do we think a severe penalty would be that would maybe deter these guys without making them bankrupt? Because I don't think you should make the guys bankrupt. I think that's a little harsh to just take somebody's food off their table. But in essence, banning them for a lengthy period of time is pretty much doing the same thing without robbing their pocket. So, if these guys were making tens of millions of dollars, I would say, yeah, fine, let's take some money from them. But and I know, and I hate to sound like a UFC basher because I'm not. But the UFC doesn't pay some of these guys even enough, even if they're fighting 3 times a year, to be able to even, afford to live and own a home. So what do you guys think, based on under the umbrella saying that steroids, and that includes all the other drugs that fall under that, what do you think would be a harsh enough penalty to deter these guys from using, so they don't use at all, and that zero tolerance policy is actually a real thing? Dana, what do you think?
Steroid abuse, anything to do with steroids. TRT is still on the fence, but I believe it is a steroid. So.
Well, that's banned too. No, there's no.
Yeah. Any kind of steroid, I believe the UFC needs to outright just say you're done if you do steroids. If you get caught doing steroids, you're done in the UFC, and actually make that retroactive. And guys like Nate Marquardt who have tested positive for steroids in the past.
Well, you probably have a hard time making it retroactive. There'd be some lawyer out there who'd be willing to fight that. But okay, so Damon is in the camp where one strike and you're out. Fred.
I would give the same credence to that, I guess. I would if you could afford the fine and you were high enough up the totem pole, I'll give you this. If a guy is only making $5,000 to show and 5 to win, he can't pay the 50,000. Fair enough, his ass is gone. Obviously, he's not a marquee fighter of any caliber, of any way, shape, or form. If you test positive and you ain't bringing in, Conor McGregor numbers, your ass is certainly out of the UFC. No doubt about it, period. You're gone. If you're a big star, if you're a Chael Sonnen, if you're a whoever the fuck, I'm even willing to give you the pass, but it's got to be something harsh. It's got to be a hard fine, a year suspension, a hard fine, something that's actually going to make these guys fucking think twice about doing it again. And if you test positive again for any fucking thing, I don't care if you're John Jones or Anderson Silva, you're gone, period. You get one fucking strike, you get laid off for a while, you get taxed a big amount of money, and if you fuck up again, anybody, you're out.
Well, that sounds pretty fair there. I mean, I would also, maybe not be as hard as you with the money. I mean, the guys who are on the lower end of the earnings scale, I wouldn't be finding them money like that. I don't know necessarily that I would kick them out just because they couldn't pay the fine. But I would say maybe it should be something graduated in between what Fred was just saying, where, a year minimum, boom, you're out for a year. And then for the guys that are, earning money and have maybe, tens of thousands or tens of millions or whatever, or millions of dollars that they've earned, then maybe those guys should get fined 50,000. Then the guys who are, not able to pay that fine, instead of maybe a year, maybe they should get 18 months, which would be pretty severe for them too, because again, those guys that are making anywhere between $6,000 to $8,000 for a fight, I mean, take them out for a year and a half, they're not going to be able to feed their family, and they will, like Fred said, have to go flip burgers or whatever, or train, or So I think somewhere in the middle there, but none of us seem to agree on what we think is the solution. But at least we all put some sort of idea out there.
Another thing I would like to add too is I would kind of be curious on why. I mean, obviously most of these guys are doing it to gain a competitive edge. But I don't know. Maybe the UFC needs to have somebody to like. Listen, you test positive for steroids once. They need to. Like Matt Hughes has kind of got this honorary job of, him and Chuck Liddell are doing shit that nobody really understands what they're doing. Maybe one of these guys need to show up. If you test positive, old Chucky shows up at your door, knocks on your door, and gives you a nice stern talking to about what the fuck's going on. And I don't know. Let these guys understand how big of a fucking deal it is. I think you see guys. And I guess they're starting to do this. I mean, you've seen what happened to Vanderlei Silva, and even though that's a whole different topic and there's a bunch of bullshit in that, I think they are starting to take it a bit more serious. So I think that generally, all in all, things are heading in the right direction. I think they're definitely starting to realize that it's a major problem, and they're starting to give out stiffer punishments and harsher fines. So, all good.
All right, so let's move on. Let's move on then, because we did want to speak about a couple other things. We only got about 5 minutes left here. Piotr Hallman tested positive for PEDs. He actually won a $50,000 bonus. I believe it was Friday night bonus that they shared, and he's going to have to forfeit that, and he will probably also be out for a year. What have you guys read on that?
Not much. I heard about it, but I haven't really read much on it. What did he test positive for?
I believe. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can find it.
The thing that struck me about Piotr Hallman was just.
I can't even pronounce it. Dostranolo?
Yeah, I just thought it was odd that he tested positive. He's a very unassuming looking guy. He's definitely not a guy that you would assume would test positive or something like that. And when I read that article, I just was kind of surprised, I guess, a bit. It gives you a bit of a surprising feeling that maybe it's a bit more fucking rampant than you think. Like, I didn't think that he would test positive of a lot of people, although he did seem pretty fucking strong for his size.
Just down alone. Yeah, that's a steroid. He's got 9-month suspension.
Right, so what is it? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any sort of friggin' consistency here. Is it 9 months? Is it a year? Is it 6 months?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not consistent, and how the UFC went with 9 months for Cung to a year, and then to miscommunication. But Hallman tests positive for steroids, and he gets 9 months. The 9 months sounded reasonable, reasonable in aspect of the way Cung was suspended 9 months, and then Cung was boosted up to a year. I guess I don't know if it's because it's the HGH and one's a steroid. I mean, they're both bad. I mean, steroids and human growth
we got to stop trying to
are a step above it.
Yeah, we got to stop trying to classify them and say that this is that is that. If they fall under the steroid umbrella, that's the only way to combat this and really get the guys to comply. It's just plain and simple. Anything that falls under the steroid umbrella, no excuse, man. That's it. Boom, you get a fucking year. I mean, it's 6 months or 9 months or 1 year or 2 years, which is what we've seen with Chael Sonnen. So I mean, really, they just got to say steroids. Anything under that umbrella, you're out for a year minimum. You guys who can't pay the fine on top of that, you'll get a little extra time to sit out on the side. So, I don't know. I think that seems to be the most.
Eddie's saying, guys do it because the only way to get paid is to be one of the top 10 fighters in the promotion. Pressure to perform and win. I know that's why people
do it. We only got a couple of minutes left. We got one more topic, so make it quick.
I know that's why people do it, but that's not an excuse. If you're gonna do it and you get busted, too bad.
Okay, so we're all over the place on this one here. I mean, Damon thinks you should go hard on them. One strike, you're out. Fred thinks you should apply a 1-year suspension with a penalty, a financial penalty on top of that. If the guys who aren't able to pay that penalty, they should be booted out of the UFC. And then I'm going, a little bit more lenient where I'm saying, give them at least a year and a fine, like Fred said. That sounds reasonable to me. And then the guys who aren't able to pay the fine, give them another 6 months of time off. I think that's basically the only way to really combat it. And like I said, put it all under that one umbrella. Don't make excuses. If it's some sort of hormone or steroid in some regard that helps you out muscular-wise or whatever with the testosterone levels, then it's banned, zero tolerance. Serve the penalty if you get caught.
The
Right.
harsher the penalty, the less they'll be doing it.
Okay. All right, we only have 2 minutes left here, and we did want to talk about one other topic real briefly. We're hearing, like Fred is saying there, it's a lot more rampant than most people think, steroid abuse or HGH or TRT. And we've seen some fighters actually come out and say that 90% of the fighters in MMA are using, steroids or TRT or HGH. So there really isn't a conclusive percentage number on that, but what percentage do you guys think may in fact be using TRT or steroids or whatever?
At any given time, or it's really hard to say. I would say probably less than half, less than 50%. I think guys more or less do take supplements, but I don't know if necessarily they're taking stuff like TRT and stuff like that.
Okay. All right, Fred, what do you think? What percentage-wise, real quick? We only got a minute left.
It's funny that he threw out 50% because that's actually what I would say, man. I would say it's probably 50-50. I would say that half of the guys competing are getting some kind of competitive edge illegally.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the percentage may be, but I know that a lot of the fighters have said that 90% of the guys are using. I'm sure that number is probably dropping because, as you guys know, these guys are getting busted left and right. They can't make money. They're getting penalties. I was thinking that maybe the number was a little bit higher. I don't know if I would say 80%, but I would say probably around 60, 65% of the guys were probably using. But we're seeing a lot more guys come out now that are MMA fighters, and they're complaining about it and saying how rampant it is. So maybe that number has fallen back quite a bit now that you have the fighters themselves complaining about that. So we don't really know what that number is because that's everybody's speculation on that. But I did want to mention some of the fighters that have been busted for steroids and that whole umbrella of things: Josh Barnett, Tim Sylvia, Chemo, Nate Marquette, Peter Belfort, Stephan Bonner, Diego Sanchez, Thiago Alves, Melvin Gillard, Sean Shirk, Hermes Franca, Nakamura, Anthony Torres, James Irvin, Chris Levin, Cairo Parisian, Chael Sonnen, Tyson Griffin, Thiago Silva. I mean, just a list of almost every guy that is, a known name. I mean, and this list just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's, not just unknown fellas doing it. It's, bigger name fighters that are doing it. So that, maybe not so much that are the only ones that are doing it, but they're the ones getting caught,
Yeah, but how many of those are within the last year? And they do tests before and after these events. So, and there's quite a few events a year.
Within the last year, it was Ali Bogatinov, Kevin Casey, Mike King, Brian Ortega, and Cung Lee. Oh, and of course Piotr Hallman.
That's a small number compared to.
Yeah, but again,
are
these guys only getting tested because they're bigger name fighters? I mean, they say it's random testing, but is it really? I mean, are they going after the guys that are actually, on the, the main cards more so than the smaller guys?
But I thought they test them before and after the fights, no matter what, and then
that's what it's saying they want to institute. I don't know if they have completely across the board, but they said that that's what they're moving towards. But again, they're saying it's going to be random. I don't know if they're going to test every single fighter, but they did say they're moving in that direction. So, all right,
yeah,
Fred, you got the final. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say
before we go, I was just going to say I wonder if steroids will end up being a big issue with women and women's MMA. I wonder if it'll start to spread over there, or if it'll tend to not be as big an issue with the women as it is with the men.
Well, we've already seen some women busted for that already, and
right.
A lot of people go after Chris Justino for that because she was busted right after the Gina Carano fight where she won the title from Carano, but it wasn't in that fight that she got busted. It was shortly after that. But you know, we're seeing. I've seen a couple other women fighters that it's like, holy shit, you look like a man. You know.
Mm.
And it's not normal for women to have those kind of muscles. Not to say that a woman can't have, you know, that muscular physique like some women do without doing steroids, but I mean, some women
Right.
just look like they're so fucking jacked up. It's just crazy.
Right, right. It'll be interesting to see if it spreads through women's MMA like it kind of seems to have with the men.
All right, Damon, you have one comment before Fred jumped in, real quick, briefly.
Nah, I can't remember what it was now.
Okay. All right, Fred, you get the last word, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that it's probably a little bit bigger of a deal than most people think that it is. And like I said, I think they're heading in the right direction. They seem like they're starting to make the testing a lot more stringent. So I think this shit will get better in the next coming years as far as performance enhancing drugs go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention in that list of fighters that I called off, not all of those were, you know, steroids and under that umbrella, but you know, they were trying to say that marijuana is also a PED, and you know, I guess there's two sides of the argument on that. We won't go into it now because you have the type of weed that hypes you up, and you got the type of weed that chills you out. You know, so you know, a lot of those names that were on that list there, they were busted for marijuana. So,
Right.
you know, I guess what they're doing is they're considering that a PED also, but I think most people would say.
Well, it's a banned substance.
Yeah, I would say marijuana is clearly not a PED, but you know, there are arguments out there trying to say that it is. Okay, guys, what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap this show up here. We're going to take a break for a few minutes. We're going to try to set up another show where we're going to talk about Rory McDonald getting the next title shot in Canada. So thanks everybody for listening in. Again, if you want to get on the show and chat with us, go over to MMA Chat, create an account, let us know you want to join us, and we'll do our best to get you on the show. Thanks, Eddie, for sending in the questions there. You're welcome to join us on the next show if you want. Any other things you guys want to say here before we close out?
No, we can save it for the next show, I'm sure.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you guys in probably 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
All right.
All righty, bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Okay.